Ashley Samsonite, 11 months later. It was Saturday night and I was out with my college friends. My brother Matt was also in town visiting his girlfriend who lived here in DC. We were dancing it up at a place called Local 16, a relatively classy restaurant located in a historic 3-story row house on U Street. At night, they cleared away the tables upstairs, brought in a DJ, and lowered the lights, and the space turned into a small, sweaty, kinetic dance floor. After a while of dancing, jumping, flailing with my crew, this girl came up to me and asked about my tie. I wear ties for this exact purpose. Not to try to look good, but because they can be a good conversation starter. They give girls an excuse to talk to you. So we were standing there talking about my tie and whatnot, and this girl with platinum blonde hair and a silver spaghetti strap dress walks up to me from the other direction and says, "You're awesome." Girl number 2 was drop dead gorgeous, absolutely stunning. And she just walked up to initiate a conversation with me. How often does that happen? Like never. This was a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. But being the gentleman that I am, I felt I owed chronological preference to girl number 1. I couldn't just blow her off and start talking to the blonde simply because I prefer the way she looked. That's not how my mother raised me, you know? So I gave a terse thanks over my shoulder to girl number 2 and then turned my back on her to continue discussing the fascinating history of my tie with girl number 1. Girl number 2 walked away, disappearing from my life for what I assumed would be forever. Eventually, I broke free of the conversation with girl number 1, who, as it turned out, had a boyfriend, so why was she even asking about my tie in the first place? And returned to dancing with my crew. I told them the story, yelling over the music. Girl number 2, the hot blonde, an opportunity I had allowed to walk away. Hadn't I learned anything from my investigation? I mean, how many girls over the years had I allowed to walk away because, fundamentally, I was too scared to continue the dialogue? Even with my very first sorta kinda one day girlfriend, Sarah Stevens, I asked her out and then just ended the conversation, effectively ending the relationship. After a few songs, I noticed that not 3 feet in front of me was the back of a blonde head. I turned to Matt. Hey, isn't that the girl who said I was awesome earlier? Matt agreed that, yeah, dude, it was totally her. The problem was that now there was a guy hitting on her. And as soon as she shut him down and sent him walking away with his head hanging, another guy jumped in to fill his place. I knew she already thought I was awesome. The door was open for me to talk to her. The problem was the continuous stream of bros trying to hit on her. And then there was this moment when she was gloriously alone, just standing there, dancing by herself. I reached out to tap her on the shoulder, but reflexively pulled my hand back before it touched her. I had just witnessed this girl shutting down 5 guys in a row. Who cared if she thought I was awesome? She was clearly in the zone, the rejection zone, demolishing egos with ruthless efficiency. No, this was no time to back down. I'd come too far. I'd learned too much about girls, about myself. I wouldn't miss this one. I tapped her on the shoulder. She turned around, eyebrows raised. Aren't you the girl who said I was awesome earlier? Yeah, I am, she said, smiling. I felt a warm tingle all over my body. She was clearly happy to be talking to me again. Now, all I had to do was chat with her for a few minutes, dance with her for a while, and she would offer me her number at the end of the night, and this would be the beginning of, "We're leaving!" The voice came from another girl, a tall brunette whose tone communicated, "My ex-boyfriend showed up here," or "I just saw another girl wearing the same dress as me," or some other such female night-ruining disaster. "Oh, all right," said the blonde. "Wait, you're leaving right now?" I asked. "Yeah, sorry." She did look genuinely sorry, but she was being pulled on the wrist by the girl who was not having fun. She got dragged a few steps away and started to disappear into the crowd. "Wait! What's your name? I'll Facebook you." Notice, not a yes or no question, so she couldn't reject it. She smiled. "Ashley Samsonite." "All right, got it. I'll friend you, okay?" She nodded, and then she was gone. I turned to Brad. "You remember Ashley, I'll remember Samsonite." His forehead wrinkled. "What?" "Ashley, just remember that name, all right?" Ashley, got it. I spent the rest of the evening repeating her last name over and over in my mind so I wouldn't forget it. It was my only connection to her, the sole thread holding us together. Samsonite, Samsonite, Samsonite. When Brad and I got back to our apartment, I immediately logged into Facebook, assuming there couldn't be more than a few Ashley Samsonites out there. Wrong. There were over 600 of them. The search results showed their profile pictures as unrecognizably tiny thumbnails. Plus, because of privacy settings, I couldn't see where most of them lived, so I was not able to simply sort by who resided in DC. I spent the next 2 hours scrolling through the search results and friending every single Ashley Samsonite who was blonde and either lived in DC or did not specify a hometown. It was 3 a.m. when I reached the end of the list, having friended around 30 girls with identical names. I had waited too long to meet this girl. I was not going to lose her now. When I woke up the next morning, I signed into Facebook and found that 5 Ashley Samsonites had accepted my friend request. 5! This made me wonder. Assuming that one of them was the real Ashley Samsonite, who were these other 4 girls? They get a friend request from some random guy with one leg and say, "Sure, I'll be friends with him." Also, when the real Ashley saw my friend request and looked at my profile, presumably she saw on my timeline an activity feed something like this: Josh Sundquist is friends with Ashley Samsonite. Josh Sundquist is friends with Ashley Samsonite. Josh Sundquist is friends with Ashley Samsonite. Awkward. Anyway, I checked out the 5 Ashley Samsonites who had accepted my friendship. Now that I was friends with them and could see their photos in full size, I was able to pick out the one that I thought I had met the previous night. I sent her a Facebook message, and she replied to confirm that we'd met at Local 16. So then I wrote, "Ashley, hooray! So glad I found you. I guess now I should unfriend the other Ashley Samsonites." So strange how people just accept a friend request from a total stranger. Anyway, I'd really like to see you again. Alas, I am currently on a train en route to New York for a YouTube thingy, and I'll be there till Friday. So maybe next week? Okay, happy Sunday to you, Ashley. JS. And then I wrote a follow up message. PS. And by accept, I mean accept. Homophones are so tricky. It should be noted that I spent quite a while on Google brushing up on the difference between homophone and homonym to make sure I was using the right one, hoping like a complete dork to woo her with my impressive command of English grammar. You're probably wondering why I wrote in my Facebook message, "I'd really like to see you again," as opposed to, "We should hang out sometime." At this point, I had a way to contact her again: Facebook, and she had replied, which showed interest, or at least politeness. So normally, this would be an ideal time to whip out, "We should hang out sometime." Ah, but there was another problem. By this time, I'd made probably 100 YouTube videos where I signed off with the phrase, "We should hang out sometime." It had become my signature tagline. And with our being Facebook friends, chances were high that Ashley Samsonite would find my videos via Facebook or would Google me at some point. These days, you always Google someone before a first date, right? And realize that I had used my favorite pickup line on her. So I was forced to choose: either I take down all my YouTube videos or use a different line. I went with option B. "I'd really like to see you again" isn't as mind blowing as "We should hang out sometime," but it still follows the basic rule of expressing a desire as an opinion rather than asking a yes or no question. And it was way better than deleting an entire library of YouTube videos. Anyway, she wrote back the next day: "Hi, Josh. Sounds awesome and enjoy New York. It's a fun place to visit for sure. It was great meeting you for half a second on Saturday. Let me know if you'd like to get together when you're back in town. Ashley." Great, I thought. I'm in. We will hang out when I get home from New York. On the train, on the way home from New York the next week, I Facebook messaged Ashley Samsonite, the real one, though I confess I hadn't unfriended the others yet. It wasn't like I was keeping them on as backup dating plans. I just felt bad deleting them immediately after they'd been so kind and accepting me as their friend. The message contained my phone number. She texted me a few minutes later: "It's Ashley. Ashley, did you find a tennis partner? I just looked at your Facebook status when I was messaging you. I promise I don't stalk you every day." Smiley face. "I didn't. I was so bummed. Signed up for a league today, though, in my hood." LOL, nice. Hopefully, you'll never be partnerless again. Yes, very true. Do you play? Ah, no, can't help you there. I'm a decent tic tac toe player, though, if you're ever looking for a partner. I'm more of a Scrabble girl if you know anyone. I am embarrassingly bad at Scrabble. My 12-year-old sister dominates me in Words with Friends. Oh, that is rough. Well, my 17-year-old sister is a far better driver than me. LOL, I will be sure to avoid letting you drive me places. Yep, wise man. My train just got to DC. Gotta go catch a cab. Hi. Cab acquired. You want to get together this weekend? No, I'm out of town, but I am free Wednesday. Wednesday it is. We'll just let the suspense keep building until then. I spent some time thinking through an ideal first date. I wanted it to begin with us walking together from her apartment to the date location because A, I really like walking, and B, when a first date starts with you driving your date in a car, your attention is annoyingly divided between trying to get to know this new person for the first time while also being very witty and clever and simultaneously trying to avoid collision with other vehicles. I mean, even with Francesca, who I already knew somewhat from school, I was so nervous on our first date that I had to play Annie DeFranco in case of conversational awkwardness while driving to the golf course. So I didn't want to kick things off with a car ride. Ashley lived in Georgetown, and I figured an ideal get to know you walk would be 1 mile long, which gave us a radius that included the DuPont Circle neighborhood. This is a cool place in DuPont called Kramer Books. That's a combination bookstore and restaurant. This means that while you wait for your table, you can browse the bookstore and try to impress your date with erudition by pointing to all the books you've read and using words like erudite in a sentence. On Tuesday, she sent me this text. Does 8 work for dinner tomorrow? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who said anything about dinner? JK, smiley face. Yeah, that works. OMG, you're a jerk already. Hey, I'm not the one who was assuming we were going to have dinner. Maybe I had already planned an extensive lineup of activities that did not, in fact, include eating. Activities like what? Go on. I'm just kidding. Dinner at 8 is fine. I'll meet you at your apartment. As I drove to her neighborhood, parked, and then walked to her apartment building, I was a little worried. Dance floor lighting is dim and flattering, and many people who look good in such an environment, upon being exposed to sunlight, do not look, shall we say, as you remember them. Ashley Samsonite was no exception, but in her case, she looked better than I remembered. She was wearing tight black pants tucked into Burberry plaid rubber rain boots, a fashionable nod to the rain earlier in the day. She wore a thin, loose fitting gray sweater woven through with shiny silver threads that matched the color of her eyeshadow. In fact, when I saw her, I felt my breath stop short as my chest seemed to constrict. This girl was like way out of my league. What was I doing trying to take her out on a date? But here, for once, my rational side won over the panicky emotional one. I'd been in this position before, like with Liza Taylor Smith in my freshman year of high school. I'd always assumed she was out of my league, so even when she wrote me that note, I talked myself out of replying. I wouldn't make the same mistake with Ashley Samsonite. Hi. Hi. We hugged. It was a pleasantly warm but unpleasantly muggy evening. Beads of sweat from the humidity were forming on our faces by the time we made it to the bookstore. We talked about normal first date stuff: hobbies, movies, jobs, former cities of residence. As we were sitting down at our table, we were talking about skiing, and I mentioned that I used to be a ski racer. I'm a really good skier, she offered matter of factly. I laughed. What? She said. Normally, when I tell people I used to be a professional ski racer, they tell me some disaster story about the first time they went ski racing and they had some hilarious wipeout. You're the first person who's ever been like, I'm a really good skier. I guess I'm different. I guess so. But if it makes any difference, I don't really like skiing. You're just really good at it. Correct. I agree. With what? You're different. When I pulled out a credit card to pay for dinner, she made the traditional polite show of offering to split it with me, and upon my declining her offer, she allowed me to pay for it without further fuss. After dinner, we walked another block to an ice cream store for dessert. She told me about her work. She was in sales for a medical research and technology company. Honestly, it wasn't that interesting, but she was. Pretty interesting, I mean. We walked home and I dropped her off. I didn't try to kiss her. It was our first date, you know? No need to rush things or risk rejection. I hugged her goodnight and said we should hang out again soon. She concurred. Ashley and I went on our second date the following Sunday. She came to my neighborhood in Arlington to meet me for brunch. It was a perfect spring day. We sat across from each other and ordered omelets and coffee and talked about college. At one point, she said, I heard what you said the other night. When? At Local 16. What did you hear me say? You said to one of the people you were with, is that the girl who said I was awesome earlier? I leaned back in my chair. There was a nice breeze blowing. What did you think when you heard that? I thought that I hoped you would come talk to me. I was hoping the same thing. After we ate, I took her on a walking tour of my neighborhood. That had been my plan for the date. Brunch, walking tour, the end. But we were having so much fun together. Things were clicking. I felt comfortable with her. Comfortable enough to suggest a spontaneous idea. Hey, there's something I've always wanted to do, I said at the conclusion of our walk. What's that? I want to get on top of a tall building and throw paper airplanes off it. She half smiled. Yes, and? Do you want to do that? Like, with me? Now? I added. She broke into a full smile. Sure. Cool. One thing, though. I was supposed to play tennis. Oh, you found someone? Yeah, this, guy. Wait, you scheduled back-to-back dates? She flushed bright red. Don't worry, it was just a backup plan. I'll cancel. She pulled out her phone and sent a text. Done. We went to my apartment and I taught her how to fold the best paper airplane ever, a little skill I have left over from childhood. We sat on the bar stools at my granite countertop and ran our fingernails along the folds of our planes to deepen the creases. She had gel cap fingernails. I know this term, gel cap, because I asked her. They were pink. We put all our planes in a box and went to the roof of a tall building nearby. How a magician does not reveal his secrets. We brought a video camera to document our flights and a stopwatch to time them. We knelt on the very edge of the building, about 14 stories above the street. One of us would lean out over the edge of the roof and throw the plane, while the other person followed the flight on camera and timed it seconds aloft. Unfortunately, most of the planes glided in lazy spirals rather than flying straight. They'd curve around in a 20-foot radius and then smack straight into the brick building. From there, they'd plummet in a tight death spiral to the sidewalk below. None of these bombers ever hit anyone, but one did give quite a startle to a dog. Eventually, Ashley threw a plane that hit the wind perfectly, and it floated out over the street, hovering and then rising about 10 feet above us. The flight lasted 43 seconds, which we agreed was probably a world record of some kind. Then we lay on our backs and watched the clouds float by. It was quiet for a time. This was when I knew we were going to kiss. My original plan, brunch, walking tour, had not really included kissing, but let's be honest, the moment was right. I couldn't miss it. I wouldn't. Normally, if I was trying to kiss a girl for the first time, I would hem and haw, talk about nonsense for minutes or even hours. Like when I sat on that rock over the waterfall with Francesca Marcello. The moment had been right, but I listened to that voice in my head and let the moment pass, and it never came again. I resolved not to make the same mistake with Ashley. We were sitting up now, side by side on the roof. I took Ashley's hand in mine and said, "It sure is a beautiful day." If she responded to my hand holding, that is, if she didn't jerk her hand back or anything, then maybe I would put an arm around her, then maybe lean my head against hers. Then and only then would I go for the kiss. That's how I imagined, at least. What actually happened was quite different, but in a good way for once. Ashley took my hand and said, "Yeah, it is." She leaned her head in toward mine, and before I knew what was happening, our lips were pressed together. It was a strong, forceful kiss, and it led to making out that lasted for I'm not sure how long. Long enough that the sun started to go down behind the other rooftops. I remembered I was supposed to meet Brad and Danny for dinner. I pulled my phone out and checked the time. Whoops! I had found my girl, and her name was Ashley Samsonite. We hung out a few days a week like this for several months. On days when we didn't see each other, we'd call to say goodnight. We were basically boyfriend and girlfriend, but not officially. I still had to ask. One night, we were snuggling on the couch in her living room. Part of me didn't want to risk it. Why talk about the relationship when everything was fine? Why risk ruining a good thing? But that was the kind of thinking that had kept me single for so many years. I thought of Kyle and his steel toed boots back when I was afraid to have the talk with Lily during college. So, I was wondering, would you like to be my girlfriend? I asked. My heart was pounding, and I hoped it didn't show, but I knew she would say yes. She had to. She looked stunned, even surprised. Eventually, she said, I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Oh, okay. Um, I muttered, sitting up and letting go of her. I mean, I want to. Someday, I hope, she added. Just not yet. Someday. I nodded, but didn't say anything. I had not expected her to say no. I figured the main battle would be convincing myself to ask, and then everything would be fine and dandy and official. May I ask why not? You've never had a girlfriend before. Right, but we're pretty much. I mean, that's true, yes. Does that matter? I don't want to be your guinea pig girlfriend. I don't want you to want me as a social experiment. I want you to want to date me because you like me for me, if that makes sense. I do like you. I do want to date you. But you also want a girlfriend. Yes, and I want my first one to be you. See, that's what I'm worried about. You want a first girlfriend. Sorry, maybe I said that wrong. Look, Josh, don't worry. I'm really committed to you. I'm just not sure I'm quite ready to be your girlfriend yet. Really committed? Who says that? I mean, in my mind, being really committed sounds way more serious than merely being boyfriend and girlfriend. In fact, it felt unfair. It felt like I was being punished for my honesty. If I had not told her I'd never had a girlfriend, if I had kept that little fact a secret, she probably would have been ready to take that step with me. It hurt. It stung. But I didn't walk out. I didn't leave because I liked her. A lot. I'd waited this long to find the right girl, and I could wait a little longer for her to decide I was the right boy. She was worth it. So we continued to hang out. But it wasn't like with Evelyn, where there was all this tension because I liked her and wanted to tell her, but was too scared of losing her. I liked Ashley, and I had told her so. My cards were on the table. If it didn't work out, there would be no need for an investigation years later, no looking back and wondering, what if? One day, she texted me about this new place in her neighborhood that served frozen hot chocolate. I pointed out that the name was oxymoronic, and she said I should at least try it before I started calling it mean names. So I did, and it was pretty good, I must admit. But for the record, it was frozen, not hot. At one point, a guy sitting at a table nearby looked down and saw my crutches on the floor. What are those sticks for? He asked. This happens from time to time. People notice my crutches before they notice my leg, and then they comment on it. And at that point, there's really nothing I can say that won't make them feel uncomfortable. Usually people say, "Oh, did you hurt yourself?" And I have to be like, no, actually, I had cancer and my leg was amputated." And then everyone feels terrible. Anyway, so the guy asked about my sticks, and I said, "They're crutches." "What are they for?" I slid back a little in my seat to draw attention to my missing a leg. "I'm an amputee, actually." I said this as cheerily as I could to try to smooth over the awkwardness I was sure he'd feel. But his face betrayed no such emotion. In fact, after pausing for a few seconds, he asked with complete seriousness, "How long before, you know?" I shook my head. "No, sorry, I don't know." How long will it take before your leg grows back? I have been asked a lot of questions, including quite a few stupid ones, but I had never gotten this one before. What do you say to that? Sorry, I'm not a starfish. I can't regrow appendages. Or, hopefully, really soon. I've been taking a lot of Miracle Grow. I just said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Too bad, he said, apparently devastated by this news. Can I buy you a drink? I declined and turned back to Ashley. It was the first time she'd witnessed this sort of encounter where a stranger had said something weird about my disability. But if she was going to be spending more time with me, she'd need to be able to handle these situations, because they happen to me a lot. So I wanted to gauge her reaction, see if she could handle the awkwardness. I mean, I could. At least now. This wasn't freshman year in high school Josh, who got really embarrassed in front of Liza Taylor because of a pumpkin shoe relay incident. These days, I could brush off that kind of stuff. And it turned out Ashley could too. She smiled and chuckled a little, and then our conversation moved on. She was neither horrified nor uncomfortable. She took it all in stride. It was exactly the response I'd hoped to see from her. We even developed a method of holding hands while I walk on my crutches. I'd keep most of my hand on my crutch handle and reach off a pinky, which would interlock with her pointer finger. Since my crutch is at a fixed height, she'd have to stretch her arm a bit to keep her hand on the same axis as my crutch handle, but we made it work. Anyway, on this particular day, we went to the zoo. I noticed during the long walk in search of the giant panda habitat that she didn't reach for my hand like she usually would. So when we walked from there to the great cats exhibit, I reached out for hers. Our pinkies were locked for a few steps, and then she let go. I started to freak out. Was she mad? Was she over me? Was she seeing that tennis partner now? Was our relationship finished? I asked if she wanted to go out for a bite to eat. That would give us a quiet place to talk about whatever was going on. See, I wasn't going to let this relationship drift away like I did with Sasha Wright when I freaked out after the pageant and just stopped calling her. No, I wouldn't assume the worst and shut down. Ashley and I would talk through whatever was going on. Definitely, she said in response to my suggestion to get dinner. But first, can we stop by my apartment so I can change into flats? The heels on these shoes make me too tall to be able to hold your hand. I laughed. What? Nothing. In the summer, I flew to Texas for a speaking engagement. The night before the speech, I called Ashley from my hotel room. What are you doing tonight? She asked. Just working on my speech outline right now. There's an Outback next door. I might go there later. Outback, huh? Yeah, they have this awesome gluten-free brownie sundae. Aw, that sounds good, babe, she said. And yes, we were now calling each other babe, but still not boyfriend or girlfriend. We said goodnight, and I worked on my speech a little more. When I finished, I headed to Outback. I ordered a salad, and while I was eating, the manager walked over to my booth. Are you the guy whose girlfriend called earlier? My first thought was, no, I don't have a girlfriend. You must have me confused with someone else. No, sorry, that wasn't me. No, 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 no. Aren't you the motivational speaker from Washington, D.C.? He asked. I looked around the restaurant. It was 9:30 on a weeknight, and the place was pretty empty. In other words, there was no way another motivational speaker from Washington, D.C. happened to be eating at another table right then. Well, I am a motivational speaker, yes, I said. Yeah, your girlfriend called earlier. She wanted us to deliver our gluten-free brownie sundae to your hotel next door. My first thought was that this was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for me. Then I noticed something about what he had said. Hold on, I said, putting my hand up to stop him. Are you sure she said she was my girlfriend on the phone? I guess he could hear it on my tone that this was a significant revelation to me. Oh, yeah, sorry, was that not what you wanted? His assumption, I guess, was that I was upset to hear that she was calling herself my girlfriend, as if I wasn't ready for that step, that label in our relationship. Little did he know how long I'd been searching for that label. No, actually, that's awesome. I did not know she and I were at that point, but it's great news. Well, now you know where you stand. I did indeed. I ordered a gluten-free brownie sundae to celebrate. When I was home a couple days later and Ashley and I were sitting on the couch together, I brought it up. So, the manager at Outback the other day said you called him. Yeah, I did. Thanks, babe. That was so nice of you to think of me. Aw, you're welcome. Sorry I couldn't convince him to deliver dessert to you. I tried really hard. I'm sure you did. Thanks, I really appreciate that. Of course, just wanted you to know I was thinking of you. Also, the manager said something else that was really interesting. She inclined her head. What was that? He said you were my girlfriend. She smiled. Oh, yeah, I guess I did say that. Does that mean that, you're ready to be my girlfriend now? Yeah, I guess it does. Cool. And just like that, I had a girlfriend. I looked at myself later that night in the mirror and noticed, somewhat to my surprise, that I looked pretty much the same as I did before. I was still the same person I had been all along, the person I'd always been inside, the one who was always worthy of a relationship, always worthy of love. Being an amputee doesn't make me a fraction of a person. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I am whole just the way I am. A few weeks later, Ashley and I were out dancing, and I started to lose my balance. Normally, when this happens, I put out a crutch to steady myself, or if I'm not fast enough with the crutch, I fall. But on this night of dancing with my girlfriend, before either of those things could happen, Ashley caught me and pulled me back to the center. I stopped dancing and looked at her. What? She asked. No one has ever done that for me before, I said. And that's what I love about Ashley. She keeps me balanced, and she just won't let me fall.